Inflation, headline and core inflation numbers, exploring key concepts and their economic importance. Agenda, introduction to inflation, headline inflation, core inflation, comparing headline and core inflation, inflation trends, impact of inflation. Definition of inflation, understanding inflation. Inflation indicates how much prices are increasing over time, impacting consumers' purchasing power. Measurement methods. Inflation is typically measured using the Consumer Price Index (CPI) and the Producer Price Index (PPI). Impact on economy. Inflation affects the economy by decreasing the value of currency and altering consumer behavior. Causes of inflation. Demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation occurs when consumer demand exceeds the available supply of goods, driving prices higher. This scenario often leads to economic growth and increased spending. Cost push inflation. Cost push inflation arises when production costs increase, causing producers to raise prices to maintain profit margins. This can happen due to wage increases or rising material costs. Monetary factors. Inflation can also be driven by monetary factors such as an increase in the money supply. When more money circulates in the economy, purchasing power rises, leading to higher prices. Importance of monitoring inflation, economic stability. Monitoring inflation is essential for maintaining economic stability, preventing volatility in markets and investments. Central bank decisions. Inflation data guides central banks in setting interest rates, which influence borrowing and spending in the economy. Informed financial decisions. Understanding inflation helps businesses and consumers make informed decisions regarding spending, saving, and investments. Headline inflation. Understanding headline inflation. Headline inflation measures the prices of a broad range of goods and services affecting consumers' overall experience. Components of inflation. The components of inflation include essential categories like food, energy, and housing, which significantly impact budgets. Consumer experience. Headline inflation reflects overall economic conditions faced by consumers, influencing their purchasing power. How headline inflation is measured. Consumer Price Index (CPI). The Consumer Price Index is a primary measure for tracking headline inflation. Basket of goods. CPI tracks the prices of a basket of consumer goods and services, reflecting typical spending habits. Inflation tracking. Headline inflation monitoring using CPI helps understand economic trends and consumer purchasing power. Significance in economic analysis. Indicator of economic health. Headline inflation serves as a vital indicator for evaluating the overall health of an economy, reflecting price changes. Consumer purchasing power. Analyzing headline inflation helps understand consumer purchasing power and its fluctuations over time. Monetary policy decisions. Headline inflation influences monetary policy decisions, guiding central banks in adjusting interest rates and economic strategies. Core inflation. Core inflation concept. Core inflation measures the long-term trend in the price level by excluding volatile items. Exclusion of volatile items. Core inflation excludes items like food and energy prices, which can cause short-term fluctuations. Understanding price levels. This measure helps better understand persistent trends in overall price levels. How core inflation differs from headline inflation. Definition of core inflation. Core inflation is a measure that excludes volatile food and energy prices, providing a clearer view of inflation trends. Definition of headline inflation. Headline inflation includes all items in the consumer price index, capturing overall price changes, including food and energy. Volatility impact. Food and energy prices can fluctuate significantly, leading to larger swings in headline inflation compared to core inflation. Usefulness in policy making and forecasting. Importance of core inflation. Core inflation helps policymakers by filtering out short term price fluctuations, allowing for better analysis of long term inflation trends. Monetary policy adjustments. By monitoring core inflation, policymakers can make informed decisions about adjusting monetary policy to maintain economic stability. Comparing headline and core inflation. Definition of headline inflation. Headline inflation includes all items, including food and energy prices, providing a comprehensive view of price changes. Definition of core inflation. Core inflation excludes food and energy prices to focus on long term price trends and underlying inflation pressures. Analytical perspectives. Both measures provide valuable insights. Headline inflation is useful for understanding overall economic conditions, while core inflation helps in policy making. Factors affecting each type of inflation. Headline inflation. Headline inflation is influenced by short term factors such as seasonal changes in food and energy prices, impacting consumer costs. Core inflation. Core inflation is shaped by more stable economic conditions and long term trends, reflecting the underlying inflation rate. Implications for consumers and businesses. Consumer decision making. Understanding inflation allows consumers to make informed purchasing decisions and manage their finances effectively. Business pricing strategy. Businesses benefit from understanding inflation trends to set competitive prices and plan for future costs. Future cost planning. Both consumers and businesses must adapt to inflation when planning budgets and expenditures for the future. Headline inflation data. Fluctuations in inflation rates. Reports show fluctuations in the headline inflation rate, reflecting economic changes impacting consumers. Food prices impact. Changes in food prices have significantly influenced the inflation rates and consumer spending behaviors. Energy prices contribution. Fluctuating energy prices are a major factor in the recent inflation trends affecting consumers' budgets. Core inflation data. Core inflation stability. Data indicates that core inflation trends are stabilizing, which is a positive sign for economic stability, and the inverse will bring about the less stable economy. Price pressures analysis. Despite fluctuations in food and energy prices, core inflation remains consistent, reflecting underlying economic conditions. Careful analysis and thought should be given in interpreting core inflation data at every point in time. Economic factors driving inflation, supply chain disruptions. Inflation can be significantly impacted by disruptions in supply chains, causing delays and increased costs. Consumer demand fluctuations. Fluctuations in consumer demand can affect pricing and overall inflation, highlighting the relationship between demand and economic stability. Monetary policy adjustments. Monetary policy adjustments by central banks can influence inflation rates and overall economic health significantly. Impact of inflation. Effects on purchasing power. As inflation increases, the value of money decreases, leading to reduced purchasing power for consumers. Changes in consumption patterns. With diminished purchasing power, consumers are likely to alter their spending habits, prioritizing essential goods over luxury items. Economic behavior adjustments. Economic behavior shifts as individuals and families adapt to rising prices, often leading to increased savings or budget adjustments. Influence on interest rates and borrowing. Inflation and interest rates. Inflation often prompts central banks to raise interest rates, aiming to stabilize the economy and control rising prices. Borrowing costs. Increased interest rates lead to higher borrowing costs for consumers and businesses, affecting spending and investments. Central bank policies. Central banks adjust monetary policies based on inflation trends, which directly influences the economy's overall borrowing environment. Implications for economic growth and stability. Moderate inflation indicators. Moderate inflation often signals a growing economy, indicating increased consumer demand and economic activity. High inflation challenges. High inflation can create uncertainty in the economy, leading to decreased consumer confidence and reduced investments. Impact on investment decisions. Uncertainty due to inflation can impact investment decisions as businesses may hesitate to invest during high inflation periods. Conclusion. Importance of inflation understanding. Grasping both headline and core inflation is essential for effectively navigating the economic landscape. Informed decision making. Monitoring inflation indicators enables consumers, businesses, and policymakers to make informed economic decisions. Alignment with economic conditions. Understanding inflation helps align decisions with the current economic conditions to achieve better outcomes. Thank you.